Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Growing Up Grieving. I'm your host, Kate Meduno, and today's episode, guess what? It's all about kindness. Would you think that we would be talking about kindness? Well, we are. You're going to hear today from Tiffany, and she's from the Kindness Concierge. She's going to blow your mind talking about the really cool, kind, and creative business that she started to honor her grief after the loss of her mother. Why don't we take a listen? All right, so I'm here with Tiffany Wachtler. Did I say it right?
You did. You did.
Wonderful. Welcome. I really am so excited to have you on. As you know, I have been following you on the Instagram for a while now. And basically since I started my own grief journey through the socials and everything. And I've always been really inspired by watching what you do. And I thought that your business was just amazing. I love the idea of it, and I actually got to use your services recently, which was awesome. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me and for following. It's so exciting when you're like strangers know who you are. It's
Yeah,
very thrilling.
I
It's
know.
very cool. So I
I
appreciate
know
that a
the
lot.
feeling. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So on your Instagram page, it reads, empowering you to show up for loved ones moving through grief with kindness and confidence. And on your LinkedIn page, because I snooped you, I read, our culture often grapples with fear and anxiety when it comes to providing comfort during times of grief. So, can you share a bit about your personal journey and how grieving influenced your decision to start the Kindness Concierge?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My husband joked one day, like, you love death. I was like, nope, nope, that's not exactly right. The thing that I love is how we can build community around loss. And so I had no idea. When I started out, I really was just kind of in a space of such tremendous loss. My mom died in 2017 in December. And she was diagnosed with a very aggressive lung cancer just 2 months prior to that. So there wasn't a lot of time to actually wrap our head around our diagnosis before we lost her. And the year prior, she'd become a stroke survivor. And so our life had just been upended. And we really got in a weird comfort zone with, okay, we know what life is like now that she's had a stroke. And while she's living in a wheelchair and requires care, there's all these other things, but you really kind of hold on to, like, but we still have her. And she's got such a great light and spirit about it all. And so we were in a real place of feeling solidarity after that and feeling really grounded in that kind of new normal, and then completely upended when she was diagnosed with lung cancer. So the loss I started to feel in anticipating her death was tremendous. And I was also doing a lot of caregiving, a lot of decision making. And what I found is that I'm really good at handling things and juggling things. And I was really poor at asking for help before this happened, because I kind of just thought it was like a badge of honor. Like, I got it all together. I'm really being a really wonderful daughter. I'm really keeping all these balls in the air. And what a fallacy that was. Like, I was a tremendous daughter. But to tell you the truth, the real beauty and the loss came from the way people showed up for me. And so people started to step forward, and I started to deploy help and actually ask for help. And when my mom died, I was so ill prepared for grief that I didn't know how it was going to just transform and upend my life. Someone told me, like, when your mom dies, your whole universe shifts. And it was just the truest statement I could have ever heard. But I was ill prepared. And what I learned is that some people really know how to do it well. They show up so beautifully. They've got it all together. Like, they don't need any prompting. They just have
Yep.
it mastered. Generally, I find those are people who have also experienced significant loss. And
Yeah.
then there were people who did it really clumsily. Like, they just kind of tried their best and maybe didn't nail it, but you could see them making the effort. But there was a whole group of people who did absolutely nothing. They were silent, little maybe supporters from afar is what they thought was happening. But to me, it felt like distance, and it felt really hurtful. And I found myself like looking around for those people. I mean, I wasn't exactly taking attendance at the funeral or
Yeah.
inventorying the flowers, but I just felt this loss. Like, wow, on top of this significant person in my life, I'm also missing some of the people I just assumed would step up. So, long story long, is what happened is I thought, there must be a disconnect. And I started to hear from those people years later, like, I didn't know how to show up for you. I didn't know how to meet this moment. I didn't want to add to your pain. And so they were just paralyzed. And I just thought there must be a way to help those people who have the heart. They just need the how, or knowing that for every person that sits back and does nothing, there's someone grieving, feeling alone. So I just really thought there must be a way that I could help people and help grievers feel surrounded by love. Plus, I love giving gifts. So it really just came together that way where I thought there must be a way, and I'm the person to do it.
That's amazing. Because I'm a mixed bag too. I have the grief thing, right? And I talk about it. I have a podcast about it. But I even still struggle, with showing up for people because it's hard. It's hard to put yourself into someone else's shoes, even knowing how it is, right? Because every loss is different. But it's really remarkable what you're doing with that. And again, firsthand, I have used your services. I know what goes into it, and you do a lot. So it's really cool how you decided to do this. So how do you think your own experience with grief has shaped the vision and mission of your business?
I really think the gift is showing up. And so I think for my business, I think I'm not someone that's looking for perfection or what's the most wonderful thing I can do. I try and be thoughtful and really intentional, but knowing that at the end of the day, even if we do it differently than the person who's receiving it intended, I know they feel seen that day and loved that day. So I think part of my journey is I realize it's not the same for everyone. And what I try and do is really just help people feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more confident, because there is that ripple effect. And I have people who come to me now and say, like, because I saw on Instagram, you said it's harder months down the road, I showed up for someone when everyone else had kind of gotten back to their routines. Or, I had someone tell me, like, I never would have had the courage to go sit with my friend who was dying because I was scared. And then you just gave me the courage. And so I think my experience is just that, probably very similar to yours, that the more we share our stories, the more we kind of change the conversation around grief. I feel like it's been made such a taboo and scary thing. And it can be really daunting. So I think my biggest goal is to make people feel like I can do something, find something that you can do that feels good to you and just do that thing. And even if you fall in that clumsy category, Kate, like just today I posted a reel about how when you do something wrong or you misstep, just own it. I did not show up well for someone that I care so deeply about, who came to my mom's deathbed when I couldn't get there. Like, this person's so tremendously important to me. And I forgot her dad's anniversary last week. And she didn't call me out. She didn't do anything. Her mom actually mentioned it, like we all forgot. And on a day when she should not have felt like she was on an island, she was so alone. And I felt terrible. And I'm like, oh, I do this for a living. I should have been able to do that better. And instead I just said, I told her, like, you shouldn't have had to feel alone. And we're going to do this better. I'm going to show up better for you. And I've shown up probably 100 other times, but I found myself saying I have to give myself some grace and own that we might misstep, but we just have to be consistent. We have to keep being there for one another, and just giving that human element to it.
Yeah. Awesome. I totally understand what you're saying. 1,000,000%. I really do. Can you describe what the Kindness Concierge does and how it operates? Because I'm not sure everybody would know, and I would love for people to know exactly what you do and how you can help others.
Absolutely. So the Kindness Concierge is basically a service that helps you show up more kindly and be a better grief ally to someone who is navigating something difficult. A lot of my journey started out of a death loss, but we have lots of losses that are loss of our confidence, loss of a job, loss of a child. There's so many things that we lose and grieve that it's just hard to know how to show up for someone. So similar to like a concierge at a hotel, I help make arrangements for you so you can do a consultation with me and talk to me about the person, the situation, your budget, how you normally would show up. And what I do is I craft 3 ways that you can show up kindly for that person. So it might be what you can say, what you can do, what you can send. A lot of times I find customizing gifts, but there are times when sometimes a gift isn't the best choice, and finding something that feels good for that situation. And then you, as the person coming to me or the clients coming to me, they can decide if they can take it from there and handle it on their own, Or in some cases, it's still terrifying and they need me to carry it out on their behalf. And so whether that's because
That
they have a
was
busy,
me.
yeah,
That was me.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes it's because people have a busier schedule. Like it's just, I want to
Yeah.
make it as easy as possible. So in addition to the consultations and doing this service, I also have care packages that are just ready to go. And someone can buy a care package on the website. And the way we make that more personal is that I help them customize the message in the card. Sometimes people don't know what to say, and my cards are blank inside, which can be terrifying to people. Like there's absolutely no
Yeah.
words in them. So
Yeah.
finding the words that kind of fit their situation, and then I mail it on their behalf. I track it to make sure it gets there. And I also like to send the sender a card that they can send to someone a month or down the road when it feels right to still say, I still see you. You're still on my mind and in my heart. So those are
Yeah.
the two main things I do. And then I also like to help businesses who have, their HR person's like in charge of ordering the flowers. Poor Gladys has to order the flowers every time someone dies.
Yeah.
Instead, I step in to help them find a more thoughtful gift or something that's more supportive, or help their department or their culture at their office know, how can we show up better for Susie Cream Cheese when she comes back to work? How can we be better supporters of those who obviously are still going to be navigating this after that bereavement leave is over?
Right. Absolutely. And what types of gifts or services do you offer? And how do you make sure that they truly are meaningful?
That's a great question. I would almost put it back to you to wonder, like, what was your experience? I mean, when you feel like, if you like, what
I'm
made it
okay
meaningful
with,
for
yeah,
you?
let's flip the script. I can honestly say that after talking to you, and we did do a consultation, what was a 30-minute consultation. I loved how you did that, because you just asked me about my friend that lost someone, and questions about her,
Yeah,
what she likes, what she doesn't like, what the person she lost was like.
yeah.
Even having to send you the obituary, I thought that was really cool too, because you get to read those and get a sense of the person. So I really like that. Is everybody as forthcoming as that uses you,
Yeah, I
or are they
try.
just, or some people just like, I have no idea, you figure it out?
Most people are at least open to the conversation, as I do want to know more about the person. I do want it to be something that's special. One of the things I like to do is think about, like, what's something that previously brought that person joy. And someone once pushed back. They said, this is not a joyful time. Like, she doesn't have room for joy in her life
Oh
right
wow.
now. She's only got room for this loss, which I think was valid. And sometimes that meant that I thought, like, what can we give her that she can use down the road? What is something that she can have now but still be able to appreciate down the road? So I try and be really thoughtful about, like, what meets this moment.
Hmm.
My We had a situation where my husband, who's in IT, and his department were trying to support the only woman in the department who had a tremendous loss. And let me tell you,
Oh
these IT
wow.
fellows, they were so anxious to do something to be kind for her, but they just said no. And so they became the client. And for her, she spent a lot of time traveling with her sister. It was one of the most meaningful things they did, were take trips together. And so we thought about, like, well, could you all get her a gift card to a place where she can have a getaway? And so we did. We got an Airbnb gift card and basically gave her
Oh.
a place where she could have retreat if she needed time alone, or that she could go and celebrate the thing that she did the most with her sister. So I think sometimes it's just trying to think outside the box and what makes sense for that person. And maybe it's not something that they can take advantage of in the moment. Maybe it's something they enjoy down the line.
Hmm.
But I feel like my job is just to really listen and hone in. If this person was a coach, do we do something that's really meaningful about coaching? Or I helped someone who was supporting someone who lost their dog, and it was a second dog of a pair, these sweet little dogs
Oh.
together. And we were able to do like a meaningful donation to the dog rescue where she got her dog, so more dogs could have wonderful homes like hers. And some things for her too. So I think just it's really important to just be very thoughtful and listening to what people are saying about their person, because I think I also remembered some of those thoughtful things people did for me. Like, I always joke, I don't remember what your casserole tasted like. I don't know what your card said, but I remember those feelings of people showing up for me. And sometimes I got stuff that I promise you I didn't want. Like, behind me, there's so many journals that people gave me. They thought I just was going to journal my life away. I haven't written one word in these, but they remind me that people showed up and cared for me.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important. And so that's why I try and be very specific and very, very much like, if we could find something that says, I see you as a human, I see you as an individual in this hard time. and I cared enough to lean into something that was very you. I try and do that. And most of the time it's been really successful. I've never had anyone say like, what's this poppycock? Because I think the gift is doing something,
Yeah.
regardless of what it is.
That's awesome. Are there any gifts you can think of that were kind of, I don't know, different or something you really wouldn't expect that somebody would get? I mean, the Airbnb, that's definitely something I've never heard before, but I love that.
I think I did have an interesting pair where it was a husband and the father of a pair who died, and they used to take picnics with him all of the time. And
Oh,
he was a bird watcher. So this weird combination of like the person came to me was like, I want to incorporate bird watching and picnicking, and I was like, what? I don't exactly know how to do this. And so it was interesting because I give people three choices of like, here are three things you can do. And so one was this like beautiful bird feeder that looked like a memorial bench because they were having a memorial bench put for him, and so that his wife could see
that's
that
so cool.
every night out of her window. She did not pick that option. And then we also did picnic baskets, and like a picnic set. And so my friend was able to write a very thoughtful card about the next time they were under, a tree having a picnic, that she hoped that they would celebrate and love her dad's experiences in real time and kind of live out the thing they love the most about him. So that was unusual. I would have never leaned into like, oh yes, let's get a picnic basket or pick that holds wine, and like let's get a
Yeah.
bird, let's get binoculars. Like I would have never thought that, but it made
But that
sense
kind
for
of proves the
that
point that you're really
situation.
tailoring this to the
Yeah,
individual,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
because, yeah, that's definitely not something when you look up online or whatever, you're trying to find something for somebody like a bird feeder. That's, I
Yeah.
don't think I've seen those.
No, you have
Yeah.
to dig deep. But I think the thing I love to do the most is take one thing off someone's plate because, like, while the tangible things are lovely, there are still things that just have to happen. When I think about coming home every night from the nursing home, kind of holding vigil with my mom, every time I got home, I had the most wonderful dog, Walter, and he still had to go out. And I was like, this dog, I love you. And I am so tired and I'm so emotionally spent. And you still have needs I have to tend to. And I remember thinking, like, God, if someone had given me like a dog walking service, like what a gift that would have been to have one less thing for
Yeah.
me to do. And so I think it's very instinctual for us to like start the meal train and do some of these things that we just kind of know. But I also try and think like, what else is this person dealing with? What else would
Right.
be, could you offer a play date for their kids just to give them a little bit of a break and give the kids some joy? Could you,
Hmm.
take some time. Someone offered to do my laundry when my mom was in the hospital. I was like, absolutely not. That was the last thing I want. But for someone, that might be the perfect gift. Is like, hey,
Yeah.
can I?
A
So what
little too
I,
personal. Very,
yeah,
very
I
kind,
think,
though.
yeah, absolutely. But I think in
Yeah.
our how we show up for one another, it's also really important to give people a menu of options to say, would it feel good if I did your laundry for you? Or would it be more helpful if I just came over and sat with you? We didn't have to talk or do anything, like giving people options. Because what I found is people just said, let me know if you need anything. And I was like, well, I don't have the capacity to even figure out what that is. I may not be able
Right.
to articulate it. It felt like homework. And so I think having just those options, like I had friends who had an extra key who came into my apartment and cleaned. And I came home in the middle of it. And I thought I was being burglarized because that was very much a misuse of that
Really?
key. Oh yeah, I was on the phone. I thought, okay, I'm calling. I told my friend I'm going to call the police. There's people in my apartment. And when I
Oh,
walked up to the door, they like jumped out like surprise, we're cleaning. And I know that I left that apartment in like disarray. Like it was so crazy, and they were very kind. It wasn't what I would have picked, and I don't recommend people burglarizing one another to be supportive.
hey, you
But
said it. No.
but all that to say, think about like what is one thing on someone's plate that you can take off. And I think that works for our coworkers too. Like, does Susie Cream Cheese have to go to the meeting with the most difficult client you have? Could we be kind to her and say, like, we can take this meeting for you? Like, where can you take just one thing? Because
I
as you
love that
know,
idea.
like, it just feels like sometimes the weight of just doing one thing can be so hard when you're grieving, like just one thing. And that one thing could be putting on your pants. That one thing
Yeah.
could be, not punching someone when you see that email that they're like, this is the least thing I can care about in all of my life is this email. I
Yeah.
think so. I think that's where the kindness really comes in, is like, where could we just extend a little more of that to each other? Even if we don't know exactly what feels good, just making those efforts.
That's beautiful. I really, again, I just love this idea. I'm all over it. So how long did it take, so my mom also died in 2017. And honest to God, I think it's been the past couple of years that I've even just tried pulling myself out of the hole that I was in, you know?
Yeah.
How long did it take you? Like, when did you start the Kindness Concierge? And like, how long did it take you to, like, did you, some people I feel like start immediately, and me, obviously, it took time. What did you do?
I ruminated for a really long time.
Yeah.
Originally it started off as a book idea. I thought, like, could I write a
Ooh,
book that's about like all the ways you could show up for someone? Just find what feels good to you and do it. And in book is very intimidating. And then as I got to thinking about like now is the time, I thought, oh God, if I write this book, people have to be in the situation, buy it, read it, apply it. I was like, okay, the ship will have sailed on showing up on those people. Like that's a very
good
long
point.
timeline. And so I thought the book could always come, but how could I convert it into a service that could help people in real time? And so I started it in 2023. So just a year, the beginning of last year.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah. And so it started with, okay, let's just see if we could just do this on a scale that makes sense. And at that point, I felt like really pretty confident in my grief in the sense of could I be in people's hard situations and be able to manage that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in the business of loss, and so how can I be kind and also protect who I am in this situation? So I don't know that I was very thoughtful about it as far as timing. I just knew the book would take too long. And then I had lots of people say, do it before it's perfect. Like, don't wait to perfect this because I have a tendency to like to control everything and get it all kind of
Me too.
in order. Grief is the just the beast that you cannot control. The one thing I've never been able to control is this grief. I really haven't nailed it. So yeah, so that's how it started, was really just like, how could I do something in real time that could help people in real time? And then it felt like living out kind of the best things of my mom and honoring her legacy just kind of went alongside it. Like this will be a very nice way to um, be the daughter that I know she'd be proud of.
Hmm. And can you please tell me about your mother? I'd love to know a few things about her.
Sure. Her name is Michelle with one L,
Sure.
which is very important to her. It's one L
Yeah.
Michelle. And she was quite a spitfire. None of the women on my mom's side are very tall, but they're very, very feisty for such small stature. So she was kind of a mixture of intimidating people with like how bold and outspoken she was, but also being so kind and loving. A lot of people kind of thought of her as a second mom. She had a really great sense of humor, and she had zero filter. Like I did not know diplomacy was a thing for very long into my adult life. I just thought like if it's honest, then you can say it. That is not how
Yeah.
you can move through the world. I don't know how she did it. And so she was just really, really funny in that way that she just spoke her mind, but she also so greatly instilled in me like be bold. And I often joke that if I told my mom like I want to be a unicorn, a rainbow, actually, she would be like, "Oh, you're so colorful, you're so great, you're so vibrant, you'd be the best rainbow." And if I went to my dad with the same aspirations, he'd be like, "Have you ever met a rainbow? Like, how much do rainbows make? Like, what's the process of becoming a rainbow?" Like, my mom's like unwavering belief in me has been really, really lovely and like such a great way to kind of navigate my life, knowing that she knew I could just handle it and do it all. Blindly. She had no, she did not have a lot of context for such a tremendous love, and yet she spelled it out all the time. So,
That's, she sounds like a wonderful person. And clearly you get that from her, I think.
thank
And
you. Yeah.
you're certainly your kindness, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is wild. So,
Yeah.
um, it's fun. It's funny because I look a lot like her. And then when I
Oh,
was
do
young,
you?
I used to be like, oh, so horrified when people were like, you look exactly like your mom. I'm like, how dare you? And now it's like one of the greatest compliments to be able to have people see her in me.
Oh, that's wonderful. I look like my dad, and my dad's this nerd, and he called himself a nerd, but he was this scrawny little nerd guy, and I'd always be like, I look like you, ugh, you know, but I do. I look a lot like him, and I really like that too. I
Yeah.
love that, so I totally understand what you mean. How is your grief today? I'm really hitting you with the good ones here,
Today. That's a
because I
great
feel like you
question.
you have a little bit of an anniversary coming up in December, then, right, for your mom?
I do. I do. You know, I think one of the interesting things with grief is as the seasons change, or in a season like fall, which I love, it's my favorite season, but to see like the leaves falling and things getting dark, it's hard not to have my mood sometimes match that with my grief. Like, ooh, it's the seasons and the transitions I think can be really hard.
Yeah.
December, my mom's birthday is December 9th, and she died on December 13th. And then there
Mm.
was her funeral on the 20th and Christmas. And so December
Yeah,
is
my
a
dad died on Christmas, so I get it.
yeah,
I get it.
yeah. I think it's been a real lesson in not feeling forced to live up to holiday cheer, but finding the joy that I can find in the season and just really having a lot of uh, comfort in that strength and fragility can live in the same place. Joy and sorrow can live in the same place.
Yeah.
And feeling like I still deserve to celebrate the joy of the season and that that's not a
And you
betrayal
do.
of her. And I also think, like, especially when you get around Thanksgiving, like Thanksgiving is when I start to like brace myself. You falsely prepare yourself for like what's gonna come.
Yeah.
Um, and last year I was a part of a workshop where they said, you know, gratitude doesn't alleviate sorrow. And so it's okay if you're grateful for the time that you had. It's okay if you're grateful for all these things and you still are really upset and really sad or really angry. And I think it was such a gift to have someone just articulate that.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting as we go into this time of year because it's unpredictable for me. There have been years where it's been so lovely, and then year four was a doozy, like a whammo, like pull over the side of the road.
Really?
How are you driving your car? What are you doing? Yeah, because on my mom's anniversary, I spend the day doing kind acts in her honor, and so I go to the nursing home where she lived, and I thank all the staff that's there, like whether they were there when she lived there or not. Like it can be a very thankless job, and so I thank them and bring donuts and bagels. And I continue the day on this kind of trajectory. And that year four, I went to a hospital that turned out was the last hospital she was in and was very just grief stricken. As soon as I walked in the door,
Triggered.
yeah, and the person at the desk, bless their hearts, were like, "Are you here to see someone?" And I was like, "No, whoopsies,
Oh,
no purse. I sure am not."
you're like, why am I here? Bye.
You know,
Yeah.
and then I had like my like Starbucks gift cards. I'm like, I just want to give this to oncology, and she's like, "What floor?" I'm like, "Ma'am, do me a solid, just send me up to the elevator." And then I got there, the nurse's station was empty, and so I had to wait for a nurse to come, and I like, literally threw those gift cards at them, and like took off crying. It was terrible. Year five was fine, but I think what's lovely though is surrounding yourself with people that keep you anchored. That particular year I came home and my husband said, "This doesn't seem like it feels good anymore. How can we do this differently? Like, do you need to be the person that takes this? Can we mail this? Can we ask our friends to help? Like, before you do this again next year, how can we make sure that you're still fulfilling what you want to do and honoring your mom, but you're caring for your grief while you're doing that?" And I think having someone who is much more chill than me, who just is able to say, like, can we just pause and see about how you can take care of you in this moment, was such a gift. And so I think it's important that we have those people to help us pause because each year is so different. And like, I hope this year is
Yeah.
wonderful. And our holiday party for work is on my mom's anniversary. I was like, that'd be a banger. Let's hope that goes well.
Yeah.
So it's just, you just don't know. I have no idea what to expect. So,
Yeah, no,
um,
I love that you bring that up too, though, because it is really important to just check in with how you feel. Because I've done a million different things on the anniversaries, and sometimes I just feel bad. Like, and we shouldn't feel shame, but I know it's just a natural thing that we do. Like I actually did this last year, and now I just can't even like get out of bed today.
right.
So I love that you have the support from your husband to just talk about it and check in to see how you feel, and then figure it out, because
Right.
I'm pretty sure that on the other side they don't care. They just want us to be happy. They're not like, I can't believe you didn't plant flowers for me
She
today.
didn't do the
You know?
bagels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I
Yeah,
think that's so true.
absolutely.
And we can put a tremendous amount of pressure about how we should grieve or how we should show up, how we should honor the people. And I think the contrast of that year four was last year. We ended up going to a bar at the end of the day. It was actually 2 p.m. I should not lie. It was not the end of the day. It was the end of the good acts. But my
5 o'clock
mom,
somewhere.
right, my mom lived for Miller High Life. She loved the champagne and
Oh,
bears. I was like, maybe we should have a High Life for my mom. And we went to the divest bar we could find and had High Life. But when we walked in, there were other people at the bar, like four of them, all having high lives. And I was like, oh, I don't ever feel like there's signs that my mom gives a crap about any of this. I was like, but this feels very serendipitous. So like to have a day where it's just like, this has actually gotten very funny and super fun. And there was beer. Like that was the way I was like, okay, we could probably just fast forward to the beers next time.
Yeah,
But, you know,
you don't
every
have to
year's
wait.
different.
You know that it'll just be fine.
Yeah, every
As you
year is
just
so
you said.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, let's see here. Um, oh, here's a good one. For individuals that are inspired to create their own support-focused business, because I believe that's kind of what you really have. What key lessons from your journey would you share to somebody if they were like, "Hey, looking at you and inspired, what do you think you could advise them?"
I would say, you know,
Don't do the
remember,
same thing as
yeah, no, I
don't do the
was
same thing as Tiffany, but
right. So, don't wait for your mom to die. No, I feel like the best advice I would say is to remember your why, especially like if you're doing something new. Like I had no idea about entrepreneurship. There's so many things I didn't know. Just remembering like why is this important to me, and making sure to do it. I think the people's advice to me to do it when it was imperfect was really important. Like to dive in and then surround yourself with cheerleaders and be prepared for the naysayers. Like I had great friends and supporters who said, this is a great idea. I think you should, there's something here. And I remember going to dinner one night with a friend and my husband, and the friend had some concerns. He's like, here's why this isn't going to work. And he unsolicited gave me a lot of information about like just his observations. He'd also experienced loss. And he's like, here's where I see the obstacles for you. And in a way that wasn't unkind. We were just having conversation, but I
yeah,
was furious. I was like, how dare you? And so I thought, about it. And I thought it's so good that he gave me things to think about. Like, what are the things that could be challenges for me? What are some of the blind spots I have? Because he brought them to my attention. And we actually talked about it later. It was never his intention to be,
I bet.
discouraging in any way.
Yeah.
But I remember feeling in that moment like, this guy, he's not even my demographic. Like, what does he know? Like, I have talked to 75 women who think this is fabulous. And I had this whole like moment. And then I thought, it is important to know the naysayers or what they're going to say and how prepared are you to stand by your idea. And so it was nice because I felt like I knew I had something. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, it was interesting. So I think there's
No, that's good
that
advice.
balance, like really also be prepared and be open to that feedback. While I didn't ask for it, it was really actually helpful just to hear the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. My husband is that guy for me. Sometimes I'm just like, why did you say that? But then I
Yeah.
think about it, I'm like, because somebody needed to say it. You know,
Right,
as
right.
much as again we don't like to hear it, but that really is that's good advice. Um, so sometimes I consider, getting educated regarding grief, maybe like counseling or coaching or something. And I wondered, have you ever thought of doing something like that? Do you have any plans do you have any grief education? There's nothing wrong because obviously I don't. But I'm just wondering, sometimes people just kind of go down that route.
I am that person. So I'm currently in school. I'm working on a bachelor's in human services, and then I'll do a master's in counseling to become a grief counselor.
So you
I
are. I didn't
I
even
am
know.
that
That's
person.
amazing.
Yeah, so in 2020, I decided to go back to school. I've been in the nonprofit sector for almost 2 decades and really successful within it. I love doing something that's bigger than me, which is how I got in the
Yeah.
nonprofit world. But I thought, what could I do in my like third act, sitting down, very old? And I had a wonderful grief counselor, and I had a medical emergency before my mom died, very shortly after her diagnosis, where I was in the stroke zone with my blood pressure. And I found out because I had a cold, went to the doctor, and that doctor was wise to say, like, what else is going on in your life? Because this is not medically related. We can't regulate this with medicine. So something else is going on. And she's like, I think you're anticipating your mom's death and that you're having this grief right now and it's affecting your body. And so I got into grief counseling straight away. And the counselor I had for that full year after my mom died was so remarkable. And I thought, like, how aren't we preparing people better for this? Like, how are we not walking alongside people more gently with this. And so
Yeah.
I did decide to make a career change. And I also volunteer with Judy's House, which is here in Denver. And they do grief support for kiddos. So they won't grieve alone and they do groups for them. And so I'm a
That's
companion
wonderful.
volunteer and sit in each week with kiddos who might need a little more support as they work through the loss of their special person. So it really has become like my grief brand. It's like everywhere. It's just like, how do we show up better? So that's where I've gone with it.
That's wonderful. Because I didn't know that, and I really think that you're going to be really good at that. So good on you. I'm
Thank you
excited for
so much.
you.
That's very
That's
kind.
really
Thank
cool.
you.
So that being said, what are the future goals for the Kindness Concierge, and how do you envision it evolving over the next few years, especially if you're gonna finish your schooling?
Yeah. I think it's a really great companion business to a therapy practice. So I feel like it will walk alongside me with that. I also think it's really important. I do think that workplaces need to change how we treat and show up for grievers. The average bereavement leave is 3 to 5 days in our country.
Yeah,
And you and I know like there's no like functioning in 5 days. And I don't know, you might be independently wealthy. I had to go back to work. I had to make money.
I did.
And I was lucky. I had a boss who I could say, like, I'm literally staring at the wall for 5 hours a day. I hope you don't think I'm actually doing work. And she's like, nope. And luckily she'd lost, not luckily, but I was fortunate for me. She'd also lost a parent and knew kind of what that road was like.
Yeah,
And extended a lot of grace. And so I think the other arm of the kindness concierge is really like, how do we improve the workplaces?
I love that.
About how do we talk to someone who's grieving? Like, I feel like people hide from you as a griever. Sometimes they don't want to
Yeah.
say anything. And even talking to employees about how do you want this news shared or not shared? What
Ooh,
are
that's a good
some
one.
things that might be hard for you as coming up? Like I feel like there's so many things we could do in the workplace to make it easier for one another and culture things that seem so acceptable, like being on camera. Is that critical for Susie Cream Cheese, who's dealing with like the hardest thing in her life to be on
Right, if she doesn't
camera?
want to be seen.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
isn't that a safe place we could extend to her to say, and feel free not to come to the company happy hour and feel free. And I think the thing you can do is always keep extending the invitations, but also giving people the option to opt out. I think there's so many things we can do in the workplace to just make it better. And I think for managers to feel equipped on how do we do with that? How do we still have productivity, but with empathy? And I think like kind of what is the necessary things and just what can you expect? I don't think a lot of people even know what grief responses are. I don't think they know that some of us are not sleeping and that we're not eating and that we're hyper vigilant. There's so many things that when it plays out in the workplace, you may not name that as a grief response. And so just even helping educate companies and cultures at work about this is what this will look like. And the one thing we can all count on is that we're all going to experience grief at some
yeah,
point. So how can we just be better prepared? And in these spaces where we talk about diversity and inclusion and belonging, can we create a place of belonging for grievers? And can we also make sure that our professional development is helping us develop those empathy muscles for one another? Like there's so much room to just weave this into what you're doing in your workplace without it feeling like one more thing. And so I think that's the next step for kindness concierge is really to have some arms out in the community so that it's more of a paradigm shift and not just one by one gift giving.
yeah. No, that's awesome. I work in the corporate world for the last decade. I feel you. I really do. Everything you were saying was just spot on, and you know, my job is a video based position as well. That's honestly the focus. So there's been times where I have just not felt like it. Like I also have a really kind boss, and she's amazing, and thank God for her. But yeah, that would be so great if you could help some businesses just kind of get over that hump and just learn a little bit about empathy and grieving for their employees, because it is, like you said,
Yeah,
everybody goes through this. You will
right.
never escape it.
Yeah,
You
it's true.
can't escape it.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I worked with a company and I did like a half an hour lunch to learn. And it was so exciting to see them thinking about like, oh, how we could do this better. And even they had a room that I said, do you have one space in your office where someone could have a grief burst? It's not a bathroom stall. Like, do you know how
Yeah.
humiliating it can be just having a breakdown over a toilet? It's not great. And they had a
Yeah.
space like, oh, we could convert this into a restoration room. We could convert this. Like, they were like actively thinking like, this is how we could do this better with what we have right now. Just simple little changes. It was so exciting to see people like hungry for like, we don't know what to do. We're going to bring in this professional who has experience in grief work, and maybe we'll do it a little better. And so it was meaningful to me to know that that office space is now got a place of respite for someone who just needs a moment.
That's awesome. I love that. I hope people listen and they are inspired just from this conversation, because it really truly is needed. And that's wonderful that you were able to even just help somebody do that. That's really cool. So I just want to end today with you being able to tell us how anybody can get in touch with you, and let us, about your website and socials and all that. And if you could let everybody know how they can be kind, just like you, Tiffany.
Well, you can find me on my website, which is thekindnessconcierge.com. I think also following me on Instagram, which is the _kindness_concierge. And that is a great place where I also just share my thoughts and my experiences, what I think we could do better, just little nuggets you can get in a day about like, oh, here's some way I could be a kinder grief ally or show up better for someone. That's probably the two easiest ways to get in touch and to also see what I'm up to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I, again, super excited that I got to use your service, and I know it made an impact, by the way. Absolutely. It really did. I got a phone call, and you hit the nail on the head. You helped me do it. And I really thank you, truthfully. Thank you so much. And good luck with everything in the future. And obviously I will still be following you on Instagram, but it's just really great talking to you. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And thank you for trusting me to support you in that way, and for being bold and kind of just asking for that extra little bit of tenderness for your friend. I really appreciated it and felt really honored to be able to do it.
Thank you so much. Isn't she the best? I'm such a lover of all things creative, and I just think she really hit the nail on the head by creating a business that's foundation is based upon kindness and being there for somebody when they need it the most. I mean, that's just amazing. I'm so happy we had her on today. Do you love the show? Do you? I hope you do. And if you do, make sure to subscribe to Growing Up Grieving on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you could always leave me a comment, or a review. That would be wonderful. Let me know what you want to hear on the show, too. You'd make my day. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you guys next time.